On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, powered by BetUS, we are joined by our friend of the show, Cole Jackson. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, our show may be powered by BetUS, but I'm powered by old fashions from the hotel bar. How are you tonight?
I'm powered by the Killers. I bet that Mr. Brightside's been stuck in my head all week. I'm still recovering from being at the game Monday night. This is a quick turnaround for your boy here. Getting ready for this matchup, but big one here to get ready for. This is where the season starts to get pretty serious now, Greg.
So I'm out on another work trip. This is a big one where I'm hosting.
I was gonna say, did you get kicked out of your house? Do we need to talk about this? Is everyone okay at home?
I might need a sponsor. So I'm hosting like a big 18-person event here, and obviously everybody knows, everybody knows about the Bills stuff. So after the game, we're man, how exciting is it? I keep trying to. I'm like, it's 3 games. I said, but 3 games of the highest scoring team in the league and the biggest scoring differential, and the last 2 games being 78-20. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm not gonna not enjoy it. I'm not gonna tell myself that just because they don't give out trophies for 3 games. Well, of course they don't, but it's better than being the Bengals. It's better than being 0-3 and trying to figure out what the heck's going on and if we can climb back into this. So I'm not going to tell anybody not to enjoy this, because right now it's a hell of a lot of fun to be a Bills fan.
Absolutely. And I'll hang September banners. I'm not worried about it. What it does is it gives you a little bit of house money here going into a stretch where
little cushion.
You want to win all these games. I'm not saying that. I'm not taking that loser mentality, but you give yourself a little cushion when you rattle off 3, and you're beating the teams that you should, because you're going to drop a game here in this stretch, most likely to a team that's good, and that can be. You look at the spread. We were talking about the spread here before the game. It's down to 1.5 or something like that. Yeah. So these are coin flip games here. The ball bounces funny in the NFL. Anything can happen. You've given yourself a little bit of breathing room leeway, which we'll talk to Cole here in a minute. The Ravens haven't. They're in a totally different position where they're feeling a little bit tense, a little bit tight in the collar right now.
Yeah, so a game like we had, last week, and being in a position, where you're coming into a game like this with Jacksonville, I think that was kind of similar to that Raiders game for the Ravens, where at the end of the season, if things come back, it's going to be fine. But all of a sudden, you're going to get into one of those seeding battles where all of a sudden, you dropped a conference game that counts in the tiebreakers. It's one where, hey, when you're a favorite of that size, you got to clean those up. So at least we're checking those boxes. It doesn't really matter if you win 47-10 or you win 16-13. It's a W. So we'll take it where we can get it. And as we know, tonight is the first of a huge 3-game stretch. We're going to know a lot more after week 6. We go at Baltimore, at Houston, at New York Jets. That is going to tell us very much where this team stands, and we'll know more after that. But first, let's talk to our man, Cole Jackson. Cole, welcome, brother. How is like we just talked about it? It's life is easy right now in Buffalo. It's been a little more up and down with Baltimore. Feeling good this week. I think we talked going in. I had no interest in playing you guys 0-3. You can't fake desperation. So I was rooting for you to beat Dallas, even if in the grand scheme of things, a Baltimore loss is technically better for us. I had no interest in playing an 0-3 Baltimore team.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tense. It's early in the season, and statistically, you're only a couple games back. But I mean, we see the numbers of teams that start 0-2, 0-3, and it's bleak. You're crawling yourself out of a hole, and you can't underrate those tiebreakers. I mean, the Ravens last year got the 1 seed and positioned themselves really well by, having some of those tiebreaker wins as we went down the stretch. Obviously, they had a great December, but they also positioned themselves really well through those conference matchups. The good thing is Lamar just somehow can't lose to the NFC. If only we could play NFC teams in the playoffs, that would be just spectacular. But unfortunately, not until the big one. But yeah, no, things are tense, and I mean, there's been a lot of frustration with our head coach and some of the decision making, which makes it, it's tough on Ravens Twitter right now. It's a lot of upset fans, and I get it. I get the frustration, and we're not used to losing, and it sucks. So definitely tense.
I got to hit you with a real serious question here. Taking like real hard hitting journalism stuff here. How hard was it to sit through a Tom Brady called football game?
It's funny because like 4:30 games are the worst for me because it's dinner and then it's bedtime with the kids, and I'm not gonna come up with some spectacular. I watched on mute the whole time because I was barbecuing, then I'm doing, bass and bedtime, watching the game out of the corner of my eye. So I honestly didn't even hear it. But honestly, amongst the fan base, he got a pretty solid review. I found
it was.
I don't know about you guys, though. You guys have a completely different perspective on Tom Brady.
Correct. We hate him with the burning passion. If this was your first time listening to Brady, it was bad. If it was your third time listening to Brady, it was noticeably less bad.
Yeah.
So his first game was the Dallas-Cleveland game, which obviously I sat through because of the timing. I was able to watch it with my father-in-law and my wife, and it was like the awkward pauses and not understanding who's supposed to fill space and him like trying not to step on people's toes. It was uncomfortably bad. This one, it still was not like it's hysterical that he bumped Greg Olsen out of the number one spot, and Greg Olsen is so much more naturally better at this than Brady is. Sure.
And Greg Olsen had that rough start too. Like it took him a few, but then he did get and that's the frustrating part is like former player comes in and then kind of figures it out, right? And then they're like, you're out for Tom Brady. Like that's just kind of a kick in the groin.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm still going to crap on him as much as possible. And it's still not good. Yeah, it's still not good. So there's no apologies here. All right. So obviously we know it's been a little up and down. No one's going to blame anyone for dropping a game to Kansas City. They're the defending back-to-back champs. They're fantastic. It was in Kansas City. And admittedly, coming out of that game, you guys had to feel like, oh, we had a shot to win that game. We can go shot for shot with them. It's a loss, but like you don't feel bad coming out of the game. It's frustrating, but not bad.
If you were to ask me at the start of the season, what's the hardest game on your schedule? I would have pointed to, defending champs at Arrowhead, part 9, right? So
of course. Then you go in and you have a game where you're completely in control, not playing great, not dominating, but totally in control, and let a really weird Raiders team get back in that game. And, we're not going to dissect that, but then you go into this and you're dominating Dallas by more than you were dominating Las Vegas, where that one was, in control, but not domination. Like this was a physical domination. You were beating them physically, dominating the line of scrimmage, wearing them down with Henry. They couldn't get much of anything going. And then they get this weird flurry at the end where, like, I don't know if they actually had a shot to really get back in it, but you're in a spot where you had to get a first down to maintain possession because the momentum felt like if you were going to punt it back to them, they might have gone down and scored. Where is the psyche of this fan base and where do you think the team is at in those seeds of doubt that get planted with things like that?
It reminds me, there was the graphic going around from Mike McDonald's first season in 2021 of the blown leads. Like there was that Miami game where they stormed back and, Waddle and Hill had like 8 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. It was, this happened a lot at this. And I had a tweet before the Kansas City game. Everybody's focusing on the O-line. And I just said explicitly, don't be surprised if the defense struggles. New defensive coordinator. Everybody thinks they're coming in just playing the same system. Anybody that's been around the sport of football knows that you don't just take someone's system and run it the same. There's going to be different pieces, different play calling, and that's exactly what we've seen. And they're struggling to adjust to that, but that's just part of the growing pains of a new scheme. So I think I'm not overly surprised because I kind of experienced it with Mike Macdonald, and we saw what he got that defense to eventually, but it was not pretty at the start. People were very upset. They kept saying, this guy never called plays in the NFL. He's not ready for this. He only did 1 year as a DC at Michigan. And now it's Zach Orr, young coach, no play calling experience. Now it's the exact same thing they said about Mike Macdonald. It's all going to be about, can Zach Orr figure it out as quick as Mike Macdonald did?
So let's jump right in here. With this defense and those changes that you're talking about, legally, how long does Nate Wiggins have to wait before he changes his name? Because each guy you draft, then when they get to the Ravens, they change their name to their original birth name. No, it's with the defense on the back end, obviously adding, what Kyle Hamilton has become, and now you have the speed and the weapon that Nate Wiggins was, and you have a player like Eddie Jackson coming in. How has that back end, which has been such a powerful safety net for this team over the years, how are they coming together with the new pieces, plugging in there with guys like, Marlon Humphrey, who's been there longer, but now you're plugging and playing Marcus Williams last year, Eddie Jackson this year, Hamilton is that movable piece. How is that coming together as a unit so far, where, 3/4 of the game last week looked awesome, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter maybe plants more of those seeds of doubt?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's been a number of communication errors, things that they've struggled with. Structurally, it looks a lot different. They played nickel 95% of snaps with Quinn. And I know a lot of the talk has been, do they miss Patrick Queen? And I don't think it's so much that they miss Queen specifically. I think Trenton Simpson's played quite well, actually, in terms of that whole 80-20 proposition. But I think they're missing that. Like they're tasking Roquan Smith with hook coverage in these massive lakes of the middle of the field because they're in dime. They're dropping, they've played league high cover 4. Like they're just leaving that basically where they get killed, and which makes me nervous with this matchup, especially with what we've seen from Khalil Shakir out of the slot early, what we know Dalton Kincaid can do. It's that 7 to 15 middle of the field intermediate area is just, it's been a struggle because Roquan's being asked to cover massive parts of it. He looks out of shape. I don't know what that's.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
it's
what's
up with Roquan Smith?
Yeah, it almost looks like he's wearing a QB jacket. Like it's weird. Like he just looks sloppy, and he's been really bad. Like let's just call it what it is. He's been bad through the first 3 weeks, and it's not helping that. I would argue, based on what I've seen the past 2 years, they're asking these deep safeties to keep everything in front of them, and they're playing deep on purpose. You look at Marcus Williams. Last year, he played the whole year with one arm. He tore that labrum in his shoulder, labrum or rotator cuff, whatever it was. He tore it like early in the year. He was at the point where if he was running the alley, he couldn't tackle with 2 arms because his shoulder was gone, but he was still jumping routes to the point where it was constantly like, if he had a second arm, that's probably a pick. Now he's sitting back and just making the tackle rather than trying to jump the route. And that's having a big impact because, again, they're just floating balls over Roquan's head into that little, I'm calling it lake because it's that big of a zone right now. And the safeties aren't attacking at all. So that's my biggest concern because I think that really plays into the Bills' offense strength right now.
So on the front end, I know, Calvin Noy was a revelation last year where it kind of looked like maybe he was, done and completely rekindled his career. You had a little bit more from Odafe Owe, but, Nnamdi Madubuike has just been a monster. And this year, I think there's been a couple flashes, but maybe not the level of dominance that we saw as consistently as it was last year. And admittedly, probably similar to Ed Oliver. Like we've seen flashes, but not the consistent game wrecking that we saw for stretches last year. Where is the confidence in that pass rush coming from with, the pieces that, without getting it from those three. There's maybe not in years past, it seems like the Ravens could just send waves of pass rushers at people. And it seems like maybe the depth isn't quite the same as it had been in years past.
Yeah, they're not using their blitz packages quite as much, and I think that's really hurting them. They were really creative last year with their linebackers and how they'd run them on stunts. It got to the point where it looked like Patrick Queen's controller got unplugged because he'd be running stunts with no lineman there, but he was so focused on playing that selfless defense to execute. Like they were just in that groove, and it was very much a manufactured pass rush. Like that's kind of what they've had to do for the last few years. It's been a while since they've had a true game wrecker. Matabike was a lot better in the pass rush game for 3 weeks. I will say him and Travis Jones have been destroying the run. Like Travis Jones is putting 3-4 reps together a game where it's just like, holy shit, like what the actual F. But I say they have a lot of dead rushes. They have a lot of bull rush. No one's really trying anything. There's no creativity. David Ojabo as, kind of that guy they took off the injury when he got hurt at the combine or his pro day. He just hasn't been able to come in and give that juice that you want. Owe has a problem finishing, but does get consistent pressure. Kyle Van Noy, I have no idea. Like it's just the last 2 years have been insane. Like just to see that production out of him. Just his lower body flexion is some of the best in the league when he's able to turn the corner. But again, you're asking a guy that's older come in and be that dominant force. They don't have that kind of go-to guy right now. And that makes me very nervous because I don't want to have to blitz Allen, right? And that's where he's going to thrive. And we have a really bad record of getting to the quarterback and not finishing sacks. And Allen's one of the best at getting out of those opportunities. So it's really creates that fundamental issue. And I expect them to play it a lot like they played Mahomes, where they didn't blitz. They sent 4, they relied on their guys to be dudes and hold up in coverage. And, Mahomes struggled early in that game, and then they started being able to move the ball.
I love when guys are just being dudes. So I hear you there. Let's switch over to this other side of the ball, man. First of all, I want to start with the injury report that came out here this week and kind of get your take on what's going on in the offensive line. Is there anything Bills fans should keep an eye on here as the week progresses? Are any of those injuries concerning to you heading into the week?
I'm a little worried about Linderbaum just because he had that neck injury through camp, and I don't know if it's his neck on this injury report. If it is, then I'd mark that down. I think
it was.
Yeah. So that's concerning because some of the folks I talked to going into the season.
Or no, Linderbaum was knee. It was Makari was neck.
Oh, okay. So, I'm going to be worried about Linderbaum until he gets through this year, just because those neck injuries can be a problem. But, sure. It's funny. The Ravens aren't playing their best 5 on the offensive line right now.
Well, that was going to be kind of my next question.
So I'll just jump right into it.
We joked in our chat, be like, I got great news. Your only healthy lineman is Falele.
Yeah. No, Falele ended up on with a knee injury. I think
it was a hip, but he participated at full. Is what?
Yeah, we need to get him out of there. It's just one of those things where.
So is that like worst case scenario for Ravens fans? Is he pops up on the injury report and you're kind of hoping, but then it's like, well, he was still a full participant.
Yeah. Like it was funny because they initially tweeted that it was McCary, Linderbaum, and Voorhees, and we were like, oh great, and I want McCary out. I'll get to that in a second, but I was like Voorhees, Linderbaum. That's like 2 of the only 3 guys I want to stay on the line, so I'm glad they're hurt. And then it was like Falele's also hurt. I'm like yes, and then but he's a full participant. It's like god damn it. But yeah, like if any of you Bills fans have followed me on Twitter, I've been complaining about this since July because. I don't know what Ben Cleveland did to John Harbaugh, but they don't want to play him. This was like such a typical Ravens scenario where they let Kevin Zeitler walk. They go with their cheap guy that they developed for a couple of years. He's going into a contract year. He'd have a good year and then he'd leave just like Ben Powers did. They've done this so many times and we come around to it. And even left guard last year when John Simpson started, they didn't give Ben Cleveland an honest shot in camp. So I don't know. He must have done something personally to Harbaugh. It's not so much like Harbaugh came out last week and said Falele outplayed him. And it's like, sure, you can say that. And, practice reps matter. I'm not going to suggest that they don't. But to not even give Cleveland a shot in games to play that right guard spot and then say he beat him out, like it's hard to accept that. And then you factor in that Roger Rosengarten, he struggled against the Chiefs. His first rep In pass pro, he fails to slide protect, gets beat by Chris Jones for a strip sack. Not great. But then he comes out against the Raiders in relief and has a really good matchup with Max Crosby. He was the only guy that could come out and single block him. So, and then they come back to game 3 and they just go back to McCary. So my biggest thing is I don't think they're playing the best 5 right now. It sounds like all 5 are going to be healthy to play. I don't think they're going to make changes on the O-line, but my biggest concern about this offensive line is if the Ravens can't control the game script like they did against the Dallas Cowboys, where they could run the ball, play action off of that. They threw the ball 18 times, 6 were screens, 6 were play action passes, only 6 true pass sets in that game against the Cowboys. They completely controlled what they wanted to do offensively. They gave up 3 pressures on those 6 true dropbacks. So, that really shows what I think of this pass blocking unit. And if they're not able to control this game script, which they're playing a juggernaut offense that's averaging 48 points a game. So if they can't control that game script, they're putting themselves in a bad position.
Yeah. Sort of, I guess, also related to injury. I know a lot of Bills fans probably have questions as to, obviously, kind of 2 things at this tight end position: the emergence of Isaiah Likely as a real legitimate weapon. I was pounding the table. I'm a big Khalil Shakir stan, and I'm sitting there talking about separation. And then there's like Isaiah Likely sitting up at the top of separation stats. And it's like, I'm happy for Shakir, but God, I don't want to face that. But then also the disappearance a little bit of Mark Andrews this year. What are you associating sort of what's going on with Mark Andrews early? Is that just recovering still from that injury and getting his feet back underneath him? Are you expecting him to get back to his former self here as the year goes on? Because the idea of both of those guys, him playing, even if we talked about Von Miller coming back, even a Mark Andrews at 80% with an Isaiah Likely is a really tough thing for a defensive coordinator. You're not getting it right now. Like, where is the kind of the vibe on that tight end room with him not quite being where you want him?
For sure. And I mean, this offense is going to be at its best out of 12 personnel. So, having those 2 on the field is just a good thing for Baltimore. But, I don't think it's recovery from that injury. He was able to play in the AFC Championship game back in January. So I'd be a little surprised if that lingered. But I think what a lot of people miss, because it wouldn't have been on practice reports given it was during camp, but prior to the car accident, he actually hurt his knee. So he was out for a couple of practices before the car accident. Then the car accident happens, and I think he obviously got slightly hurt out of that. And I just think from that knee injury, he doesn't look healthy. He's not giving full effort on plays. And that's just not really him as a player over the last 6 years. So I'm hesitant to say that suddenly he just showed up and doesn't give a shit anymore. It looks like he's just kind of laboring off that. Luckily, Likely's been able to fill in. Charlie Kolar has been playing. Pat Ricard, they call him a fullback, but he's been playing tight end for 3 years.
Maine guy. That's our guy. The pride of Maine.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, this has become, a 12 personnel dominant team. But obviously Andrews just isn't himself, and that takes their best pass catcher out of the mix, unfortunately. Until I was really concerned last week with him only playing 22 snaps, because we didn't really see the snaps go down until last week. And, if he's working through an injury or he needs time, it's probably better for him to go do that and, heal up and get ready for the stretch, rather than, I guess making it linger and not getting fully healthy. So just to see his snaps come down, I think that was the most concerning sign I saw. But even when you watch him, he doesn't have the same explosiveness. He doesn't have, he's a good comparison for a guy like Kincaid, where he can be more of like a slot receiver than a true tight end. And really what kind of took Mark Andrews to the next level a few years ago was when he became that kind of, he was never top of the league, but he became a very solid blocker, right? Because it really allowed them to line him up where they needed to and then be diverse in their play calling. And, his blocking has been, dog water this year. So that's my biggest concern, because then you get Ricard out there and then it's like, okay, Ricard's out there, stack the box. And then I think that's what the Raiders just, keyed on, bring the safeties down. Now you're running into 8-man boxes and making it difficult on yourself. Luckily, Dallas doesn't know what gap integrity is. So that was just easy work. No issues there.
Obviously, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about Lamar Jackson. We respect him. We know him. We've been there. We know about it. The last question here I want to ask you.
Who should have won MVP last year?
Yeah. We got it coming our way. Don't worry. We got one coming. But I want to ask you, I'm a big fan of toxic differential, explosive plays, things like that. And in watching these games, they're definitely generating them with the run, right? 10 plus yards. I think you guys are leading the league, or you're right there with the Packers in 10 plus yard explosive runs, but the explosive passes haven't been there yet. And you're going up against a Bills team that is tops of the league of not allowing explosive pass plays. Do you think they've got to prioritize finding some of those shot plays, or can you trust your offense to get it 10 yards at a time with, that's how you're getting the explosives from a Derrick Henry and putting together 12, 10 play drives consistently without turning the ball over? Is that really a good way to beat a team like the Bills, or do you got to find a way to generate some of these explosives here?
If you go back to the 2019 offense, which was, our most efficient offense in ever for Baltimore Ravens history, it was the way that those 10, 12 play drives would eventually set up those explosive pass plays. And that's really what propelled Lamar into that next tier as a quarterback. And it just looks to me this year like they don't trust their O-line. They're not even really looking deep. If you look at his pass chart, it's not really just checkdowns. A lot of these are designed. Lamar's from the second most screens. We haven't been able to run a screen since Ray Rice was in town. Like, it's just something we've never been good at. And yet they're constantly doing it because they're using the screen game with Zay or, getting swing passes out to Derrick Henry to basically be an extension of that run game and try and give at least a little bit of a different look to the defense. But until they can trust this pass blocking unit to, go for those deep shots, I don't think they're going to do them. Like, there's been too many negative outcomes with, Lamar's one of the best at, taking pressure situations and avoiding sacks, but they're just constantly throwing him, into those scramble opportunities. And then that's when he's taking contact, and it throws his mechanics completely out of rhythm. Like, if you go back and watch the end of that KC game, for whatever reason, KC was only rushing 4 on those last couple plays, but they were using a full line slide to the left and asking their running back to block Chris Jones off the edge. Like, and you can see Lamar.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, I don't know the second last play, Lamar does a 360. Like, I'm just like,
Justice Hill versus Chris Jones is totally normal stuff.
Like, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, just because, again, like, if they were blitzing, sure, like, you can always justify a slide with a blitz coming, but to see Chris Jones out there on the end and then, end up blocking 5-on-3 on the other side, and your running back who's 5'9", 205 pounds blocking Chris Jones, like, it's just bad football is what it is. So, but my point to that is you can see Lamar's mechanics break down. And if they get him out of rhythm early, he'll be hearing footsteps the whole game. And that's when he struggles to settle in. So to answer your question, I think they're going to have to rely on, and this is what we've always struggled with, controlling the game script, those long drives, a lot of plays, death by 1,000 cuts. It's like those old New England offenses where, it was 6-yard pass, 4-yard run, 7-yard pass. That type of offense is unfortunately the way they have to get it done in this game.
So RC sent in a message for you saying that if Josh Allen keeps playing this well, Lamar will win third MVP.
Science.
So obviously we're gonna pull up our friends at BetUS. Cole is the BetUS representative for the Ravens market. Obviously, a lot of exciting stuff. The best payouts in the industry. Super easy to work with. Great interface. Right now they have an awesome promotion: $150 bonus on the first deposit and 125% on the second and third deposits, up to $2,000. Use promo code YouTube150. Make sure you check that out. Really, really fun to use. And this week, you know how it works, Cole. We're going to put you on the spot. We've got the line here. BetUS has it at -1 Ravens. They have an over under 46.5. What do you expect to see this Sunday night? Give us a score prediction.
I mean, if there's any Ravens fans watching this, they're going to get mad, but smart money's on that Buffalo money line right now. That's what my head says. My heart's going to go with that -1 for Baltimore, though, because I think this is just one of those games that they claw out and find a way to win, given the scenario they've put themselves in. So it's more to do with, and Greg, go back to your point, like an 0-3 Baltimore be playing with desperation. I still feel that desperation. It's not as extreme, but it feels
you don't want
like
to drop another conference game.
You can't. Like, we're going to be it's going to be too far off. So I feel like this is going to be one of those option heavy, Lamar running, kind of like the KC approach, where they're going to be in playoff mode, basically do or die. I think Baltimore gets it done at home, but that 115 on that money line for Buffalo, given the way they've been playing, that's pretty appetizing.
Yeah.
Right now, they've been a wagon. It's really been fun, and I think this is going to be. Obviously, we talked right before you jumped on. This is an awesome test for how real are these first 3 games, because you go on the road and you go, at Baltimore, at Houston, at New York, you're going to find out real quick how real this is and where they stand. And if they come out of this 5-1 or something like that, I'm gonna feel real good. So we'll see where it goes. Colt, let the folks know what you have going on over at Road Graders and what can they expect from you in the future here.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me on, guys. You guys know I love catching up with you guys and jumping on for these, but you can catch me over at Road Graders with Cole Jackson. On YouTube, you have to search with Cole Jackson, or else you'll be looking at road grading equipment, and that's not what wasn't my best branding. It wasn't
my nephew really likes that. My nephew likes the heavy machinery
yeah.
videos.
There's definitely a niche market for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of good coverage there. I focus on the trenches. So if you want to see how bad the offensive line has been, if you guys want to lick your chops for Greg Rizzo and all those cats up front, go check that out. And just thanks for having me on, guys. I always love catching up with you. And
it was easy for us when we saw the schedule and we saw Ravens. It was like, hit up Cole. This was.
I think I got a message in July. So
yeah,
that's right. You know it. We appreciate you. Hopefully, an entertaining game, a healthy game for both teams, and hopefully, it's the first of another matchup down the road here. We'll have you back on in January.
AFC Championship. Let's
do it.
Let's go.
I'll even
let's
go to
go.
Buffalo because I can make the drive.
That's right. That's right. We'll go eat wings,
buddy. Wings on me.
That's right. That's right. All right.
All
Later,
right,
Cole. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
See you, bud.
Oh, all right. Always fun to have Cole on. He's fantastic. And for honestly, everybody, we talk about guys like, Brandon Thorne and others. Cole's awesome with offensive line work, especially in the draft. You want to get ready for the draft. He's really good with his draft prep for offensive line play. So, I'm torn here with this one, and we'll get into our score predictions later, but I'm torn because of what he said. Like every analytical piece of this game tells me the Bills should win. I almost want to say the Bills should win almost comfortably. They're really good in the areas that the Ravens are struggling. The Ravens
aren't some like crazy home team either.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not going into Kansas City. It's not going into Seattle. It's not going into Minnesota now. It's not like that. A perfectly fine crowd, but it's not like that. And I get it. Like, so it's like what Mass brought up here. It's that it's the blackout game. They're good in primetime games. It's the desperation that they need this. It's all the outside things, because every analytical piece and watching the breakdowns here and watching them let the Raiders come back and let the Cowboys come back. And, there were times where the Chiefs were moving up and down the field at will against them. I don't see a whole lot of how they're going to stop this Bills offense right now with the everybody eats approach. I don't know who they're going to focus on. So I'm trying to, my heart and my head are arguing with each other.
Sure, I think that's fair. I think it's clearly the best matchup the Bills have faced thus far. We're the hammer still, though, in this scenario, and I think for all those things you said about the Ravens, the Bills travel well. The Bills play well on the road in primetime games. Like we're not that team that is worried about showing up to somebody else's house in primetime and playing them, even if they play well. I just think right now, it's like we talk about all the time with like the Bills versus the Chiefs. Like, I'm not going to pick against the Chiefs in the playoffs until I see the Bills do it. Right now, I just can't pick against the Bills right now, the way they're playing. And the only thing that I think can stop the Bills is themselves. Like, if they come up and show up and they're detailed in their execution and they're doing exactly what the game plan that these coaches are sending them out to execute, if they're doing all that stuff, right now, it's hard for me to find a team in the NFL that is going to make me pick against them. Like, I'm going to pick them against everybody. You can call me a homer all you want. I got the data to back me up. And so I feel fairly confident going into this one. But Vegas is smart. they don't lose money. There's a reason that there's this is basically a coin flip of a game. Maybe, I guess, betting a little bit more than me. What's the average home line is like 2.5 now?
It used to be 3. Now it's
like
come
2.
down where it's between 1.5 and 2.5, depending on the location and how good the team is. Good teams get the 2.5.
Right.
Like iffy teams, it's only really like 1.5. So I would say this is a line where they're telling you that the Bills on a neutral field
like a half
are
favorite.
A half point, 1 point favorite. It's
Yeah.
that kind of game where the Bills are favored slightly on a neutral field is what this is telling us.
Yeah. So Vegas is probably pumping my brakes a little bit because I don't have it as that. Personally, I have more confidence that it's a little bit more than a coin flip in favor of the Bills. And it's just because the way Josh Allen is playing, man. If he plays like this, like the way he's been playing, that's just tough to stop.
Yeah, so real quick before we get to our score predictions, our friends over at William Mattar, you got to go enjoy his company on Monday night. Really cool invite, being in the suite with him. That was awesome.
I gotta say,
some pictures and videos with him. You danced with him?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. They treated me so good, and I have to say, man, like I've met a lot of people that are either like somewhat famous or on TV and all that stuff. And it's rare that they are who they appear to be. You meet them and you're like, oh, like that guy was kind of, William Mattar is so cool. He's exactly what he really is. Like, he's so easy to hang out with. Like, I was a little nervous. I get anxiety. I was a little nervous. I've never actually met him. We talked to him on the show here, and all his whole family was nice. I met some of his employees. He was super cool. We chatted all night. I had a really great time. Hard to not have a good time when the Bills are doing.
That's a nice environment to have a good time.
Correct. But super shout out to Bill and his whole staff and his family. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was really cool.
So my here to help topic for tonight was something that, again, with the quick turnaround and all the different pieces, we didn't get a chance to really talk about this. I was a little surprised that now not only did Taron Johnson not go on injured reserve after week 1 and the things going on with him, but Terrel Bernard didn't go on injured reserve either. When we were worried about him being maybe a couple month injury. And is there a chance that we might get some help, that the people who are here to help might be Taron Johnson and Terrel Bernard sooner than we expect?
Well, Joe Biscaglia, I think it was, tweeted out today. They talked to Taron and talked about that it's like a slight crack break in his forearm, like not a full break. It wasn't like a clean break. It was just a crack. And that it was like a 4 to 6 week prognosis, but he was eyeing, I think he said the Texans game is what he was eyeing to return. What I would urge people though, just because they didn't give him the IR designation, if they don't return within the 4-week window, that also isn't a reason to freak out. I think they gave themselves the opportunity to say, like, there's a good chance we get him back in 3, but so we'll leave it open. But
wait, so you're saying do I need to pump the brakes instead of, are we pumping the brakes instead of being here to help?
Well, because that was my first thought, is like, I think a lot of people are going to get mad if it's not within the 4 weeks. They're gonna be like, well, why didn't we just throw them on IR? Like, this is so stupid. The Bills are dumb. And I think what they're like, these things are kind of moving targets, and it's a
you also need 5 or 6 inactive guys every week anyway,
right?
So
exactly.
if you don't want to throw away an IR return spot and you need somebody to be,
and those practice squad things, you have to pay those people when you move them up. Like, they're shifting chairs around and stuff like that. If you don't feel like you have to do it and you can get through a stretch, I am anticipating that the plan is that they are going to arrive back to help, to your point.
All right. I'm moving it back to here to help.
We're going to be back to here. I think it's a more likely scenario that one, if not both, will be back before that designation. I just want to pump the brakes that, like, these are injuries. This is a moving thing. Like, if they're not ready and the training staff says it could be 5 weeks, and that's not the end of the world. But at least Taron is saying that he wants back for the Houston game, which would be big.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is we're going to find out this weekend. We're going to find out Sunday night, because Jacksonville and even Miami just aren't built to test the middle of the defense the way that Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry can.
Right.
Like, they are going to test the middle of this defense in a way that we have not been tested so far this season. So all credit to Bobby Babbitt, Sean McDermott, the coaching staff, and the players. Dorian Williams stepping up, Balen Spector stepping up, Cam Lewis stepping up, Jamarcus Ingram stepping up, the platoon system they've had with 3 safeties, the entire structure of what they built has worked incredibly well. We've held the Jaguars and the Dolphins to 20 total points, 10 points each, 2 teams that have legitimate offenses and top end first round pick talent all over the place. However, we were able to lean into the strength of the defensive line, the outside corners, and the talent in other spots in a way that's not necessarily the strength of the Ravens. The strength of the Ravens is between the hashes, and we're going to find out real quick how ready this defense is without those pieces. So I have that in mind, that regardless of the outcome here, which I do think the Bills can be victorious, I don't know that I expect another 10-point defensive performance in this one.
No, but the path to creating something like that is just to score a lot of points early and often and get them out of having the ability to attack the middle of the field and force them to try to create some of those explosive plays against your defense. But yeah, no, this is going to be a test for sure. And I think a lot of people will hang their hats on like, well, Sean McDermott's done a really good job of neutralizing Lamar Jackson in the past, or he's done a really good job in the past with Derrick Henry. Those aren't the same, like that doesn't transfer. There's no transit.
There can be some planning amongst it, but there were also Taron Johnson and Matt Milano were part of those games when we did those things.
Well, and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson weren't together.
In
those
they
games,
were right? Like, at the same time.
It's a little easier when you're playing the Titans and you can focus in on Derrick Henry because you're not as worried about necessarily Ryan Tannehill. Not taking anything away from Ryan Tannehill, but he's not Lamar Jackson. This presents so much more when they're doing some of the RPO stuff. Like, it's a bigger deal when it's Derrick Henry, or even we were talking a lot about Henry, but Hill's a legitimate threat too to
for sure. A dangerous weapon out of the backfield. He's a sneaky guy.
But this is a different component than we've faced in either of those matchups where we've stopped Lamar or we've stopped Derrick Henry on their own. And I think that that's going to be interesting. And then what they're able to do playing off the play action with that. And that's probably my biggest concern in the middle of the field, like you're talking about, isn't even so much the linebackers. It's that safety unit that hasn't really been tested yet. And I've always been a big fan of DeMar Hamlin. I'm not going to take back that, but I think there's going to be some games where he struggles in certain situations when the team really tries to attack him in a situation like that and his aggression at the line of scrimmage. And this could be one of those where he gets caught up in run support on play action, coming up to get Derrick Henry, and Isaiah Likely is just right behind him. You know, those are the things about a matchup like this that scare me.
Yeah. Carl here is asking what I think is a loaded question. Which team gives up 291.67 yards per game, which is 32nd in the NFL? I'm going to guess that it's the Ravens because he's asking right now. And I'm going to guess that because I did hear something earlier that they have the worst pass defense in the NFL, which is because they lost the Chiefs in the first game. They let the Raiders come back, and then they almost let the Cowboys come back. And that was a whole bunch of crazy passing at the end of those games. So there's a little bit of context to some of those stats, but they still let it happen. They still allowed it to have the Bills in both games where the Dolphins and the Jags were trying to come back, stunted all those comebacks and held both teams to 10 points with very little in the second half. So they're there to be gotten.
I'm going to pump Carl's brakes. I love you, Carl. Thank you for the super chat. But I don't care about yards at all. And I don't care where anyone ranks in yards. The Ravens are,
although the Ravens have allowed some people to score a bit too.
They've allowed, so they're 24th in points per game at 26. So that's not good. And they're 13th in defensive pass. So they're not the worst in terms of DVOA. They're 13th in defensive pass. So they're right in the middle of the pack. But when you do DVOA, when you do versus receiver, they're like 26th. It's not great. But yards isn't how I'm going to get there. But yes, I think the opportunities against this Ravens team are definitely through the air for Buffalo.
So speaking of, I'm going to pull up our friends at BetUS again here.
Yeah.
What is your score prediction for this game?
Yeah, I'm going to come right out with it. So I'm definitely, I think I'm over the 46.5 here because I am at 47. I have it, the Bills 27, Ravens 20. And I think it's like a late touchdown for the Ravens that make it 20. I actually think the Bills are going to walk away with another one here. I think they're on a heater, whatever you said, they were a wagon, right?
Yeah, I think that's what the kids did. That's what my nephews informed me that's what the kids are saying.
Yeah, they're dripping right now. I think is that one too. They're the Riz.
I'll take your word for it.
Skibidi toilet. No, I don't know. They are. they're the hammer, and I think that they are the standard right now in the league. And just the way Josh Allen's playing in this offense, if he can play within himself, there's going to be some opportunities against this defense. And the way I see this game going is, whether or not the Bills get the ball first or not, they're going to score early. And I think if they score early and often, you take away from the Ravens exactly what we're worried about, which is them testing the middle of this defense and having to get 10, 12 plays because they're not able to generate those explosives. Like, I'm going to take that chance every time that, sure, maybe they'll get a handful of touchdown or a couple touchdowns from doing those types of drives. But in the meantime, the Bills are scoring pretty regular and pretty consistently. I think they'll get to Josh a little bit more than we've seen. I think his dirt jersey might get a little bit dirty this week. I think that they're going to have to grind out some drives, and maybe Ravens force a couple turnovers here. It won't be as clean as we've seen the Bills play, but the way Josh Allen's playing, the way this offense is operating, if you're giving me an opportunity to pass the ball against a defense that has shown miscommunications and a little bit weak on that back end, Josh has to be licking his chops watching that film and knowing that even in that game last week, as perfect as it was, there was more out there. Like, there was other explosive plays that they could have had. And so they're on one right now. Joe Brady's in his bag. And I think that he attacks this team and they come away with a fairly comfortable 27-20. I think, again, Ravens score late to make it maybe seem closer than it was, but I think the Bills have a nice, comfortable win here on Sunday Night Football.
I like it. Earlier tonight, I heard a really smart guy say that until I see it, I'm going to keep picking this. Well, until I see the Bills not score 30, I'm going to pick them to score over 30 because that's just what we do now. So I've got the same margin of victory, but I have it Bills 34, Ravens 27. I do think the Ravens are going to give us a scare. I do think they're going to move the ball. I think Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews are going to freak us out and upset us about the structure. I think Derrick Henry is going to get his. I think that Lamar's a great player. Like I don't need Lamar's not as good as Josh Allen. Josh Allen's better than Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson's awesome. Like both those things can be
are
true.
the best of that class, which was supposed to be like the most generational QB class ever.
Yeah. I don't need to pretend that Lamar Jackson's bad for Josh Allen to be great. Josh Allen's great, and so is Lamar Jackson. He's just not quite as great as Josh Allen. So I think he's going to have some moments in this game too, but I don't think I think the Bills can get enough more stops than this Ravens defense can get. And I think it's going to be that kind of game where there's going to be some haymakers back and forth. The Ravens might even have a lead at one point. But I think that the Bills defense can get enough more stops than what this Ravens team can against. Right now, Joe Brady and Josh Allen are in lockstep more than any other OC and quarterback combo in the league right now. And I'd love to tell myself that that's going to last for 20 more, for 20 games this season. And maybe it will. But it is true right now. It is 100% true right now. And again, you said the stats aren't, the yardage Carl brought up isn't necessarily the reason why or the reinforcement, but there's other stats besides that tell you that right now they have not figured out how to replace the loss of Mike McDonald, and this defense is not up to par in the way that it has been a standard bearer the last couple. It's been, you go in every year and it's, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, San Francisco, like those are the standard bearer defenses and the Baltimore's not been to that standard right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that Buffalo's simply going to outscore them, but I do think we're going to see maybe some of the depth challenges of playing three new guys across the middle at both linebacker spots and nickel maybe brought to light a little bit more this week.
Yeah, and if they don't, then I'm really doubling down on my never pay defensive players again.
Oh my God! If they get through this without. Yeah.
Just give Sean McDermott just bottom of the barrel players. They'll turn them into stars.
If you think I'm unbearable now.
Right. Right.
All right. I was actually just going to look at.
Well, I got a question for you real quick while you're looking through there. I hate talking like this, but it just popped in my head with this upcoming stretch here, right? Ravens, Texans, and it's Jets, right? Ravens, Texans, Jets is our next three.
Yes.
Here.
Yep.
If you gotta go 2-1 in this stretch, this is probably the one to drop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't want
You can't drop the Jets. You don't want
correct.
to.
No,
And I don't want to deal with the Diggs stuff.
correct. No, you're right. Like I have no desire to lose to Baltimore.
I don't want to
but
lose any game. Yeah.
One, it's the most respectable to lose to a desperate Baltimore team on
And a team that was
Sunday night,
a 1 seed last year with the MVP.
Yeah, that really, really needs it. That needs it more than you per se.
Right.
I don't want to give that to Houston or the Jets. So yes, I want to go 3-0. Of course, I want to go 17-0. If I had to pick one, it would be the least painful to drop one to Baltimore than it would to drop to Houston or the Jets. So some silver lining of what's there to be done. And it did come up in the chat here where I hadn't really thought about it with the storm that's here, that there's a chance some of the remnants of that storm is in play Sunday night. So I don't think we're going to get like crazy storm, crazy wind, but there is a 60% chance of rain right now on Sunday night.
The nice thing is, I think Josh Allen's waterproof.
I
think he's actually weatherproof.
I'm more comfortable with Josh Allen in the weather than I am with Lamar Jackson in the weather if I was a Baltimore fan.
Yeah, no, I've said it for years. I think,
although I won't lie, Derrick Henry in the weather probably doesn't sound awesome to tackle.
No,
but he's probably not awesome to tackle anytime,
any day. Yeah, I think it's going to be light rain. And so that's what we dealt with last week. I think the Bills are going to be fine with that. But yeah, Josh Allen is a weatherproof Gore-Tex quarterback. We don't need to worry about it.
All right. Any final thoughts for the people before we close out here?
Yeah, no, it's going to be another long night, another primetime game, get through this. This is the start of the real season here now. I feel like you kind of had these warm-up games, not that they were walkover games, and you got a little house money going into it here with being 3-0. Everything feels good.
We put money in the bank.
Yeah, you got a little money in the bank. And so don't get upset if it is you walk out of this next stretch here 2-1, or heck, even if you drop a couple. Like, the Bills have given themselves a good position to be in. Other teams are not doing great in the AFC, so you've got a little cushion right here to start. You're in a really good spot. Get through this stretch here, and I just want to see them continue to play really good football. And then, like you said, enter your here to help segment. If we can get Terrel Bernard back and Taron Johnson back, I'm going to start feeling a lot better about the meat of that schedule here coming up.
100%. I think there's a lot of good things to be excited about. They're playing the best football in the NFL right now, so it's great and fun to look forward to. There's no reason to think we're not going to see the best team in the NFL on Sunday night, and if that's the case, this team will be a hell of a lot of fun this entire season. So let's look for that. Let's hope for that. On behalf of our awesome guest, Cole Jackson, and fantastic producer, Chris Kepner, you have been listening to Aaron Quinn and Greg Tompsett. This has been the Cover One Buffalo podcast. It was sponsored by the BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. Please gamble responsibly. On behalf of the team, we are